And I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let the records reflect that Councilmember Brigham and Assistant City Manager Kevin Thompson is with us. And with the meeting called to order, I guess the first item is communications. And we have a correspondence from Rob Kozlowski on all electric reach codes.
You also, go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
Also, Irene sent one from Joyce Mann regarding the Sculpture Trail Committee.
Yeah, I thought we'd talk about that under item 5B.
Okay, there was just an additional communication. Yeah.
Okay, good. David, welcome.
Mayor and Chair.
Hey, David.
Hi, Marianne.
I'd like to go ahead and have public comment. Anyone wishing to address the subcommittee on items that are not on today's agenda may do so. There's no one here at City Hall. So Irene, is there anyone out there in the waiting room that would like to talk?
No one with their hands raised for public comment, Chair.
Okay. Excuse me. Item number 4 is the approval of the April 21st, 2020 minutes.
Approval.
Okay. I'll let the record. Excuse me. I got to go get a drink of water. It's not 19, I assure you. Okay, so the minutes of April 21st, 2020 have been approved. And the first item under 5A is temporary sign permits. And Kevin, is this yours?
Sure. I think this item was put on as a discussion from the previous committee regarding political signs. We do allow for political signs in our temporary sign provisions in the sign ordinance. I'm not sure if there's any direction to attempt to amend the temporary sign provisions, but they do allow for up to 75 days for political signs. Was it 30 days? Oh, darn it! I just lost it on here. I had it written. I had it on my other screen here. It does allow up to 30 days on the initial installation, with an additional 45 with the planning director approval, and that includes all temporary signs. We did discuss this with Jose a little bit, and just generally speaking, you know, it's hard to put a lot of restrictions on political signs because of First Amendment rights. And he's talking about many jurisdictions kind of struggling with it. I've seen several of these in places I've worked. The ones we have pretty much follow the same kind of guidelines, where there's a certain number of days where you can have it in your front lawn. There's a size limitation. I wouldn't recommend changing anything unless the committee would like to see maybe some options laid out for different rules regarding political signs and temporary signs. But you know, there's not a lot of guidance here, but there's enough to say the amount of time and the size. And so, in my opinion, is that it's probably adequate. If there was an abundance of egregious signs in town that we were trying to target, and it seemed like there was a big problem, then maybe we could suggest some changes. But that's up to the committee. If you'd like to direct us to come back with some proposed amendments, that's kind of all I have on that one.
Thank you, Kevin. Marianne, any thoughts on this?
No, I don't have a problem with the way it's written.
Okay. Neither do I, and quite frankly, I think this came to us because there was a sign out and somebody I'm only guessing, but I think it was what the sign said as opposed to the fact that it was an early campaign sign. So I'm quite comfortable with it the way it is. I mean, we do have our issues from time to time, but during an election year, but I think everyone is pretty good about going around picking up their signs the day after the election. They don't usually put them out until 30 days prior, 45 if they have permission. But I'm quite comfortable with it the way it is. So, Irene, if you could bullet point that at the on the agenda for next week, and we'll just let them, the rest of the council, know that we took a look at it. We're comfortable with it, and if they want us to look at it again, we'll be more than happy to do so.
Of course. And then we do have one public comment when you open it up, Chair.
Okay. Well, then why don't we go ahead and open it up? Thank you.
So we have Bob on the line here.
Thank you very much. Bob Cox here. Hello, Mayor Walter and Mary Ann.
Hey, Bob.
This is in reference to political signs. I do agree that our local candidates do a pretty good job of getting the signs out at the proper time and picking them up afterwards. However, this last term, there was a countywide office that was challenged, and there was a sign there that was there for 2 to 3 months afterwards. And I think those people need to be notified within a week after that particular election to come pick it up. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other comments, Irene?
No other comments, Chair.
Okay, let's move on to item 5B, Cloverdale Sculpture Trail installation. And we did receive an attachment. And whose item is this? Kevin?
Yeah, Mayor, this item is a request from Joyce Mann, and I know Mary Ann probably knows a lot more about this than I do, but it's from the Sculpture Trail Committee, and it's a schedule of the new sculptures that are planned to be placed throughout town and in downtown. In the spreadsheet that they provided, it describes the location, the sculpture's name, the artist, and when it's going to be, when they want to have it installed. I think this is an annual occurrence here in town. Mary Ann, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I think it was just to get our blessing on
Yeah, well,
the schedule.
ready for me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The sculptures, of course, already should have been, according to the plan, installed by now, but with the virus and everything, that got backed off. And Joyce wasn't being pushy or anything, but she has managed once again to get every sculpture sponsored. And I think she's doing a great job at this. And they even did a book that's online now so that you can actually look at them and, interact a bit. So she's gone out of her way to be cooperative, but I would really like to know if anybody on staff, I don't know, with the loosening, I don't see a problem. I don't know if anybody else does. Maybe there's something that I'm unaware of. I know it always takes at least 1 or 2 city folks. I think Craig usually is running the forklift, but Joyce tends to be a stickler for timing and space, and so I don't see anything holding it up, but I may not be aware of something that you guys are.
Is Joyce wanting help from the city like every year? Is that what we're trying to do here? Schedule a time to get the city crew to give her a hand, or?
Yeah, well, every year the city gives her, she gets them all sponsored and everything, and then the city helps. And it's like I said, it's usually Craig and can't remember who else helps always, but same couple of guys help. So they're used to the routine, and it usually takes a day, not a full day, but she's got it all timed very carefully, and the artist shows up and then it gets placed. And so I think basically it's just, can we, does Craig and maybe one other person have the time at this point in time to be able to help for a day to get them in? I think it would do a lot of good, just purely because it would bring something new for people to walk around and look at and be involved in, and it would look like we're sort of doing something. But I just don't know if help-wise, I just can't see that one day would really make a difference.
What day is she looking for?
She just wants to go ahead, and then she'll start actually doing times, dates and times when all artists can show up.
Yeah.
And sometimes the artist shows up, sometimes they don't. It's always good to let them have that option. And some of them require the forklift and others don't.
Okay.
So it's just mainly she's just waiting to get the nod so that she can move forward.
Okay.
It's just the bigger ones that need the forklift, the great
Yeah.
big ones.
Well, I think that's up to staff to go ahead and make that call. I mean, this is the first time this has ever come in front of the subcommittee for permission to do this. So I would think it's up to staff to give the nod and tell her to go ahead. Now, I don't know how 19 is going to play into this, but I would think everybody would still have masks and doing the proper protocol.
Yeah, she went through this whole thing with me about how she, there would be no problem with the 6-foot distancing. Everybody would be wearing masks. She would make sure that that there was plenty of sanitizer and all this other stuff. So I think that isn't the problem so much as she's just, I guess if she just doesn't want to go ahead without the city saying, yes, now is the time. Now everything is kind of not so crazy here, and we can handle this. She doesn't want to be a pushy bitch, basically.
Okay. Well,
So
Kevin,
you
you want to get back to her on that, or how do you want to handle it?
Yeah, I can, or David could, or Kevin could. Basically, I don't hang around for every sculpture. I still help with the brochure and do things like that with the sculpture trail. And the city is helping again with the AutoCast. So I think she's got this pretty well sewed up. I hate to see the day she decides she can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know that she's 84 now?
Wow.
She'd be mad if I told you guys that, but
Great.
she's still really, and the artists just love her.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's something we do every year, so I don't see why we wouldn't do it again. I mean, I can talk to Craig tomorrow, and maybe he can directly coordinate with Joyce on his schedule and her schedule, if that makes sense. David, I don't know if you have any ideas. I mean, I watched him do it last year, and
Right. It's just a function of her letting us know what dates. Obviously, if there's a couple dates, it just gives us flexibility in case there's another project and that we're in the middle of. But otherwise, just confirming the dates and let's proceed. It looks like we've got about 12 that need a forklift. So yeah, it's just and it's usually Craig and Curtis.
Right, it is Curtis now that you mention it, yeah. So,
Okay.
so should I tell her then that she should just wait for Craig to get a hold of her?
Ask her she's usually pretty proactive. If she sends an email, we'll just make sure that we coordinate the date and we'll proceed.
Okay, so I'll tell her it's a go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item, Irene?
There's no public comment, Chair.
Okay. Then let's move on to item 5C, which is an update on weed abatement and tire storage. Kevin?
yes, as you know, we do our annual weed abatement with the fire district, and that is well underway. I did refer this address to Kevin. What's his last name, David? Sauter, I think. Yeah, the captain. And he said that he would go out to this location and add this to the list of weed abatement properties that we do every year. at the council. So there's, there's 2 hearings. There's the first initial hearing, and then there's the second one. Typically between the first and second, people end up cleaning up their lots, and we get pretty good compliance. So if that's okay, I mean, I've referred to the fire department. He said he would go take a look at it, and that's probably our best approach at getting the weed abatement as a process, as the course of the normal way we do it every year with all the different properties with high weeds in town.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a business called tire storage.
I don't think that's the name of a business. I think there's a bunch of tires out there, and it's just kind of been the tagline kind of thing. But
Oh, okay.
That
It was
wa-
capitalized, so I went, oh, new business.
Actually, Mary Ann, I brought that item to Kevin's attention. I was riding through there in front of behind the Payless storage and across from Bear Republic, and they had the back gate open. And there is just a pile of big old tires back there.
Yeah, I noticed that. You're right. Yep.
And it's not so much that my concern is tire fires are really difficult, and the smoke that they bellow it would just be devastating here if the wind was blowing right. So I just pointed it out to staff that the fire department should look at it. I know Paul Souther also has them stored up alongside his building. He manages to keep them neatly stacked, and I've seen that pile go up and down, so I know he moves them. But that's right next to the Alexander Valley Health Center. So I guess tire storage is all of a sudden on my radar for some reason.
Okay.
And I think it's just the aftermath if we should have a fire there. So he's going to go look at them? Is that what you said?
he probably already has, because I did refer this to him a while back. But I'll follow up with him tomorrow and just see what he came up with. It may show up on that list of properties that we do every year, or maybe he can talk to them and get quicker compliance. I didn't really mention the tire part, so I will do that. I just mentioned weeds to him, so I'll definitely follow up with him and ask him about what he thinks about those tires.
Yeah.
That's something we need to tackle and take care of.
Well, they're also, I don't have to tell you, hopefully being annexed into the city. So that could become an issue for us if we want them cleaned up. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Mary Ann, anything on this item?
No, sounds like you got it covered. I don't have a problem with that at all, because I've seen tire fires. They're a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you.
And I guess that's a hand, Irene?
That's correct.
Mhm.
So, Bob, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak now.
Thank you. It's Bob Cox again. I just wanted to remind you, we don't want to find them along the riverbanks either. So they need to call and have them officially receipted for and proper disposal.
That's a good point, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. Okay. Kevin, anything else?
I will follow up with Kevin at the fire district, and I'll let you know what he says. And I think that'll do it for that one.
Okay. All right. The next item is 5D, and it's review climate change. And David, is this, I'm sorry, Kevin, is this you again?
I don't know if David could help me out, but I did take some notes. I don't know if it's possible, Irene, to put up the reso, because I went through this kind of the way we discussed, and I would like to just kind of give an update on what the ones we are working on, and then maybe look at some of the ones we're not, and maybe just talk quickly about those. Maybe prioritize some that are easy, some aren't real easy. But as you know, we did change the name of this committee late last year to include sustainability, and the thought was that we would use this resolution passed by the council late last year as kind of a guideline on what we're going to do in terms of making this a sustainability committee. If you could, Irene, I don't know if you can go all the way to the bottom where the measures are. I'm happy to report that we are doing a number of these, and I'll just give you a quick update on those. Some of them we aren't, but some of them we are. Okay, so if I can, I just go through this. I won't take too much time, but we can just kind of go through this a little bit and talk about what we're doing. The first one, promote climate matters on the website. I know David does a lot of website updates. I know we had the styrofoam thing, so I think we tried to just keep generally our recent occurrences or things that were our initiatives that we're working on the website. If those happen to be, in the vein of sustainability, they'll be up there. There might be more we could do here, but I know we are trying to broadcast what our efforts are, so we can maybe work a little bit more on that one. Resiliency strategies and vulnerability and climate change, aging infrastructure, probably. And I want to talk a little bit more throughout this whole conversation. Is one of the biggest things we're doing is we've engaged in an energy audit with PG&E's, let's see, what's the name of the group? Sustainability Solution Turnkey Program. So David and I and Mark have already had one meeting over the phone to discuss our facilities, and really the overall idea is that they will they're going to do an extensive energy audit on all the public facilities, and produce a really detailed report for us, and then suggest energy efficiency upgrades that could be financed through the savings of electricity. So that's just a real general idea around it. It is a PG&E program, and so we've just started the discussion. We did have a energy audit conducted at City Hall by the county's sustainability group. We haven't seen the results of that, but the results of that will be sent to this other group, who ultimately is going to do a larger energy audit. And I think we have a walkthrough scheduled in early July. So they're going to be looking at all of us. And, really our big energy users, like every city, is water, pumping water for wastewater and water facilities. We do have some older facilities there, so there might be some real opportunities to really save a lot of money and energy. So that's one of our big initiatives. Let's see here. So under design community plan with increasing community engagement, that's down a little further. If you can go down a little bit, Irene. So we're talking about Google Classroom here. So obviously one of the things that has happened out of the COVID situation is we are working from home a lot, which has reduced greenhouse gas emissions overall. But we haven't, it says utilize Google Classroom. We could have put Zoom in there. We've been utilizing Zoom, and maybe in the future we can continue to do this, but we don't have a real policy for that at this point. The free fare program. So the council approved free ridership on Sonoma County Transit, and we've seen a dramatic increase in the use of transit as a result of that. So that's a good one. The local hazard mitigation plan, that's underway. We've had several meetings with our consultant, Bob Lager-Marcino, and he's done some outreach in the community. It's just a little difficult at this time. I think normally we'd be having bigger kind of like charrettes or workshops, but he's been trying to do it electronically and getting, pretty good participation. One of the things that was mentioned at the council meeting was the vulnerable populations map, and that's something that I put together, and that's going to be incorporated into a larger local mitigation plan. So that's really just identifying places in town that have vulnerable populations like assisted living. So that's underway. Under land use, which is the next topic, we talk about the SB2 grant funding. We did receive that grant. We're still waiting for some paperwork from the state. So the idea here is that you probably remember, we're going to take a look at downtown zoning and TOD zoning and look for ways to make it, easier to build housing and easier to provide transportation within those zones. So that one is underway. And then on to building. Do you have any questions or no? So building energy, this is kind of what I was talking about. And I have to say, this is probably our biggest initiative under this whole resolution, is doing the energy audit and hopefully presenting to council a package of energy efficiency projects that really make financial sense, as well as will really help us reduce our energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. So we'll be reporting back regularly on the results of that. The reduced water consumption, we've been discussing that we're probably going to be moving into a phase 1 drought declaration at the city council in the next few meetings. We're trying to get our ducks in a row so we can roll that out in an organized way, but it's kind of inevitable with the water agency stating that they're going to reduce the flow in the Russian River, which could affect our wells. So we're going to have to start conserving water. So this is really the item here is to continue to replace water-intensive landscaping in common areas managed by the city. And I know we did a lot of that in the recent drought, so it's getting more and more difficult because we've done a lot of the easy ones. And so we're going to continue to look. I think we would want to do the same for water users if this measure does say managed areas managed by cities. So one of the thoughts was that maybe we could get the county to, and I don't know if this is possible, but it was one of the thoughts was the county has a water sustainability person on staff who does kind of do water audits at people's houses. And so that would be a free service where, or maybe we can contract this and use enterprise funds. It's not a fully developed idea, but the idea of having someone go to people's houses and do water audits for them is an established idea in a lot of cities. The idea would be to get it in Cloverdale so someone could call and say, hey, how can I reduce water use at my house? The person would come to their house and say, well, you can convert this landscaping, you can do this, this, and this, and lay out options for them. So we're trying to look into that. We know we don't have a lot of money, but if we can get the county to maybe lend some assistance on that or do it in some other way, I think it's a worth trying to pursue. Consider all reach electric code. We've talked a lot about this. We've had one meeting, one community meeting. This is Mr. Kozlowski's, has done a lot of research for us and sent a lot of good emails. I would just probably say that this one's at a standstill at this point, at least until COVID is over, because the council's direction was really to have more outreach with contractors and others, which is, we could attempt to do that on Zoom, or we can just maybe wait a little bit and see how that goes. Solid waste. A couple things here. Implement zero waste resolution. David, maybe you can help me out on some of these. We talked about Friday Night Live, trying to reduce waste there. And we've looked at Windsor's model where they're selling, cups that you can use over and over again. And then you get a buck off of your beer if you continue to use that cup, and they're metal. And that's been very successful. And then the polystyrene ban, which is completed. So David, I don't know if you have anything else on solid waste. That would make it easier to recycle, install recycling containers at locations.
So the other item that the council approved was to sign on to a grant application through the state to support a local recycling facility that provides, cash back to those who bring recycling materials to it. So that was all going to be subject to whether the agency is successful in obtaining a grant to purchase the equipment. I haven't heard back yet whether they've been successful or not, or whether the state's finalized their awards. But certainly once we hear back, we'll inform council. But that was another initiative that we did kind of under zero waste.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
The funny part of it is I've been occasionally going for drives just to get out of the house. And I drove from Geyserville, from Healdsburg to home on the back roads. and I think I saw like 8 mattresses and box springs just laying around. It costs to go and dump them, right?
It does.
They take them to the transfer station, but it's not super cheap.
I wonder if we could, I know we had one where you could go and take the mattress there, but I wonder if we could push them to maybe do it like 4 times a year or something, just for those bulky things, sofas, mattresses. Because I think we only have that once a year up here in Cloverdale. I'm not sure.
We have it twice, I believe.
For mattresses?
Oh, curbside pickup, I'm referring to, I guess.
No, we had to take, actually, I had a truck, and I was in a truck that I think was, well, it was a few months ago, but it was the only time I had ever seen at the Citrus Fair, which was specifically set up to accept mattresses and bulky furniture. And they dumped a mattress off there, but I have never seen so many mattresses laying around on the road in my life. So I wondered what made that happen? What changed?
COVID.
What does COVID have to do with mattresses?
Well, people don't want them.
Oh, you mean that, they don't want to buy them or anything from a...
Well, or sometimes people will give them away to other folks. I think there's a less inclination to take them now.
Yeah,
it might be that simple.
It's not real cheap, and I don't remember, but I remember thinking, wow, that's pretty expensive to take a mattress to the transfer station. Some people, it's easier to just dump it on the side of the road, which is unfortunate. But I think the bulk pickup, would that be related to our Recology contract, David, or is that specified in our?
It is in our franchise agreement, but with Marion's request, I can certainly send an email and ask that they look at or evaluate providing additional, mattress events, disposal events, because they actually do. I mean, unlike the transfer station, they just go in the landfill. Whereas when they do those events, I think they actually try to disassemble them and take the metal out and recycle it. So, it's kind of better for the environment if the company that does it recycles them.
I've just noticed that bulkier items, and now you've got me thinking that it could be COVID. Bulkier items are starting to appear beside the road, like sofas, a lot of mattresses, box springs, chairs. So maybe it's just that simple. And when COVID's gone, if it's ever gone, that'll change again. I don't know.
Yeah. Plus,
just an observation.
It was a location where you could take your old furniture and they would gladly take it. And then now they're not there anymore.
Good point.
Well, I'm a firm believer that the transfer station should be open one day a month or however they do it, where you can bring mattresses and they don't charge you. I mean, is it cheaper to do that, or would they rather send crews around to pick them up off the street? I mean, I would think if they just made it free, a couple times a year, it would go a long way. Kevin, just a couple things with respect to the inspection of City Hall. I think I asked this before. Once that inspection is done, is the financial burden on the city to make those replacements, or does that come with free light bulbs and windows and whatever else they want to give us?
Well, it's the idea with our sustainable communities is that we're going to bundle all of these facilities together, and the goal would be that the energy savings achieved through all of these projects would finance for the improvements over 10 years. So just say, David, how much did we paid a ton of electricity at the power plants? I can't remember. I mean, it's a substantial amount of money. And so the idea is that, again, if we can just for raw numbers, say it's $100,000, and we can drop that down to 75,000 through energy efficiency projects. That 25,000 is used to finance the improvement but it has to be, and it doesn't have to, but typically it's an 8 to 10 year payback. And then assuming whatever the improvement that was installed, has a longer life than 8 to 10 years. So after that point, we would have the benefit of the energy efficiency solely for our financial, our financial situation. But also, during that time, we would have, better equipment. So if they're new pumps, we would have less maintenance and things like that. So it's, we're not sure that they can bundle enough things together at the city of Cloverdale to make it work, but we've made the first couple of steps. And so we're hopeful that will work out. One of the things we have going for us is our pumping is older. Our water and wastewater facilities are on the older side. So those are like 75 horsepower electric motors that are running all the time. And so it's a ton of electricity, and, you can make big gains by upgrading those. So that's really the crux of it, but it would be on us. I mean, we would ultimately have the decision if we want to do it or not. The way it's been framed, if it's a really good project, there would be no out of pocket, and it would be financed through the way I just mentioned. But ultimately, once we get the report and run the numbers and we're happy with that, it's all going to be, a council decision down the road. And they've got experts who've done a lot of cities. They're doing Sonoma County now, and they've done several other cities. So again, we've just had one meeting. I think we're going to have a walkthrough in July, where we're going to go to all the facilities. They get pretty deep into it with engineers and all those things. They look at the age of the pumps and all those. I keep saying pumps because that really is our main electric.
Mhm.
If it was just City Hall and replacing light bulbs, we may be able to do that a different way. But if we can get it all at once, that's the goal. So,
Well, that would come out.
Yeah.
That would come out of the enterprise fund anyhow, wouldn't it, for the water pumps?
Yes.
It could, yeah.
Yeah.
But it may not have to come out of anything if they can, again, make it work. It's kind of like on bill financing. So,
Gotcha.
hey, your bill was $100, now it's 75, but we're keeping that 25 to pay for those pumps we just put in for you.
Yeah. Okay.
And-
And on the on the polystyrene containers, when does that take effect? We already passed that, didn't we? And isn't it the end of this year? Didn't we already do?
We
Yeah,
did do that, yes.
Us, basically 30 days after the council adopted the ordinance. But there was a time frame. I think what you're asking about is for how long a business had to take to actually begin implementation. And it's in essence, it kind of gave them a year to fully utilize their, any of their styrofoam materials and get it out of stock, and with the goal of not using or not purchasing new styrofoam materials, all the while doing some outreach with businesses that may continue to use styrofoam.
Well, I think with COVID-19 and all the takeout business, I would think the restaurants pretty much utilized all their back supplies of styrofoam containers, but who knows?
Yeah, I don't see. It certainly seems like it's waning. Except there's probably, I think there's still a couple businesses that continue to use it.
Irene, does anyone have their hand up for this item?
No hands are up, Chair.
Okay. Councilmember Brigham, anything else?
On those issues, no.
I'm sorry?
No, not on this polystyrene, no.
Okay. All right.
it-
Then I think we're ready to move. Yes.
So
Were you done, Kevin?
I just like
No,
to
he's not
conclude by
yet.
saying, well, there's a couple more. I mean, transportation is where our biggest greenhouse gas emissions comes from. This is the most difficult one to deal with. You know, it talks about mixing, you know, changing our fleets out, and we're not really buying any cars at this point. It's just, we're not in that position. The one at the very bottom, which you can't, if you can scroll down a little bit more, I mean, the safe routes to school, that one we can kind of say we've done some work there, and that project's being completed now with the new sidewalk. But you know, switch to clean vehicles. These are expensive endeavors, and I don't believe we don't really have any new vehicles in the budget, and so. And then water treatment, we've talked about that a little bit. And then the final one is others, which is the health action, which we did discuss at the budget meeting. We are working with them and plant trees. So, I mean, if it's okay with the committee, I would like to just keep tabs on these and report out as we make progress on them. If you see anything in there that you'd like to do, you know, you can let us know. We can help you coordinate. But I think a big part of getting these done is just really talking about them, going over them. I'll be quicker next time, but we just want to, you know, keep you in the loop on what we're doing in terms of what's on this reso, and you know, expressing to anyone who wants to take on any of these to let us know. But if not, you know, David and I and Mark, and we are working on some of these. Try to keep that ball moving.
I do have something I would like to ask.
Okay.
In the budget, now this is for if we are ever faced with the evacuations like we were before, and the Citrus Fair. I've been talking a lot with Jim DiMartini and that group over there that is working towards trying to work with the Red Cross to set up and work with all the different agencies to get the cooks in line, and kind of I don't know how much they're talking to the city. David, Kevin, have they been in contact with you guys?
Councilmember, I'm happy to give you an update on that. Yes, yeah, Jim DiMartini has been very good about keeping me in the loop and copying me on emails, you know, on some of their major initiatives. And so it's been very appreciative to the planning activities that they're undertaking to, you know, be as prepared as they can for emergency events. And you know, obviously we support that. I mean, one of the avenues that I wanted to explore through the resiliency plan that we were developing before COVID hit was to look at an agreement with Citrus Fair, maybe target you know, something like $5,000 annually that we basically kind of have, that we have in place, so that when and if an emergency hits, we can provide them direct funding to support, you know, any emergency supplies, particularly food and water, those kinds of things, you know, to respond to the emergency. Because that's always the challenge is, you know, how do we transfer funds, you know, without, you know, just giving them taxpayer money or without an agreement in place. So it'd be nice to have a standing agreement, and you know, that they can call upon when and if an emergency happens or is called, that we can just provide, you know, immediate funding to them. And it seemed like, you know, $5,000 would kind of be a way of at least getting that in place. And of course, you know, if conditions were needed, we could provide additional funding assistance. But that was kind of my thought on that. They also was recently notified by Katie that they were applying for a grant through Cal OES to obtain a backup generator. And you know, I asked if they needed anything from us. It was a very quick turnaround time for them. But you know, that's the kind of initiative that we certainly want to support, you know, them getting grant for. And we need to pursue similar types of grants, you know, for, I think, for city facilities, including the senior center, obviously, one of the things we're doing is we're going to connect City Hall to the backup generator at the police department, but then also maybe look at the library so we have, cooling and or warming centers set up and established that are resilient in case of power outages.
Okay, I think that, I don't think that the grant worked, but I'm not sure about that. See,
Okay.
I remember when the last thing happened and I was running around town at the hotel and then going back over to the Citrus Fair. I think there was a problem with getting the money in the first, and they always consider the first 72 hours as critical. They can't sit and wait for money or help getting food and stuff like for 3 or 4 days. And I do appreciate the fact that you want something in writing, but that was very frustrating for me that luckily other people stepped up. But I think the city's got to step up in this. And $5,000, $10,000, that's enough to have in the fund, but it's got to be easily accessible. You're right about that. And if we did gift cards or whatever, to have some control over it. But I think in situations like that, and when you're only handing over like a $100 or $200 or $300 gift card, I don't think we can be horribly picky. The other thing, and we talked a lot about that, David, you remember that. And I also talked to you about the generator because it made me crazy to watch families laying on the asphalt trying to sleep who had just escaped from a place and had nothing left. And it took days for that to get organized. So when I was looking at the budget, in my own stupidity, I guess, I looked at it and went, okay, we've got the budget. We're going to take care of the food issue. And I saw the $35,000 for the generator. I think it was 34 or something. I thought, okay, we're getting the generator for the Citrus Fair, until it dawned on me the other day that it may not be for the Citrus Fair. And so when I checked with Kevin, indeed, it was not. So I think as a city, I'm not saying that we should take over responsibility for everything, but on the other hand, we're going to have shutoffs this summer. We all see it coming. And while we sit in our sort of air-conditioned homes, a lot of people aren't going to have that ability. So I don't know how exactly, if we take it out of reserve funds or whatever, I would like to step up our help. And if not, maybe do a fundraiser of some type where the city will match dollar for dollar up to what everybody gives to get a generator for over there, because we are going to use them. We know we will. And it'll probably be multiple times. And I, for one, and I don't know how the rest of the council is going to feel about this, but I would, even if we have to use reserve funds, I would like to see that generator in place over there within the next couple months, just purely because we know it's going to hit us. And if it doesn't hit us this year, it will next year. So I think we just need to be more proactive at getting that emergency center over there so that they can run the air conditioning, they can run the lights. The reason people couldn't sleep inside was because there was no lights. And I thought, well, cripes, that's just bad planning. So I would love to be able to do something with this, and I will be the liaison with them if nobody has a problem with that. But here I was thinking in my ignorance that we were all taken care of until a few days ago. So I don't know, Gus, do you have an opinion about this?
I have no opinion about this. Other than I agree with you 100%. Finding the money is always the challenge, Marianne. I agree 100% with the food, and I think I think we've worked that into the budget so that we've made it easy just to cut a check or get them money somehow for the feeding. The generator, that's going to be the challenge. It's 35,000. For us, that's a lot of money right now.
I can't say it would be 35,000. I checked with Mike Nixon, and he used Blue Star, and they do a lot of senior housing. And when he bought his for Papa's Pizza,
Yeah.
and that's a kind of a beast. But even something that size, that was 21,000. But maybe even just going so far as to just saying, look, let's get some estimates. What would it cost?
Yeah.
Then I can start pushing around. There were a lot of people who came up here to stay that were farm workers for the wineries, and they were misplaced, or they were displaced up here.
Yeah.
So all of those people in Healdsburg did not provide them with any place to be, or Geyserville. So Cloverdale, because we didn't get evacuated, are kind of getting, a guy promised I wouldn't swear anymore, are getting screwed, you know, on the money we're going to get. But on the other hand, we are the ones that rarely have the shutdowns, but we get all of the guys coming through and needing a place to be.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be that hard to do a fundraiser of some type. I'm just saying that I don't think our city can afford not to be of some kind of financial help.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, and I think the way we're also focusing on the senior center for a generator, I think that would probably be less expensive than trying to do one for the Citrus Fair, but it's definitely worth pursuing. I agree. You know, if you want to try and do some type of a fundraiser, I can get on board with that, Marion. Where are they with their application for a grant?
I don't know.
I can check on that. And Mayor, Councilmember, if it's okay, just a couple of thoughts for your consideration. You know, in terms, I think Councilmember Brigham, you're right on. I mean, the Citrus Fair is a critical partner in our emergency response, and you know, again, I was hoping we were going to formalize that as we developed the resiliency plan, that was going to be, you know, one of the outcomes was a formal agreement. Maybe it's a 5-year agreement, so we don't have to do this every year, to, you know, support them as being our care and shelter facility. And then, you know, with that, pursue funds through the county, because the county also has funds, and they recognize, I think, that there's a need for a care and shelter facility in North County that's not only going to serve, you know, it's not just about our residents, as you mentioned, it's about the greater area around, you know, North County, and so the county should contribute as well. So in that effort to obtain some cost estimates and then come up with some kind of, you know, sharing agreement, kind of like Gus, we did that with the pool. Of course, you know, we're still working on that, you know, but that might be an arrangement that we can all agree to, where the county and the city, and then the organization itself, and then you have private partners like maybe Rotary, Kiwanis, etc., who can make some donations, so we can make it happen.
They have approached the Rotary, the Lions Club, all of them, and they said nobody's on board for this one. They said they'll do the cooking, they'll do other things, but they think that we as a city and the county should step up, because that's an expense that we should be shouldering ourselves, because they are basically going to be our center for
care and shelter.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that they could do that would enable us to help them more easily during an emergency would be to do the advanced wiring so that it supports a portable generator. And then we as the city can fund the portable generator as part of our, you know, expense during the emergency. Or, you know, if we have advance notice, we're not always going to, but at least try to have in place where we have generators available, then that expense can be reimbursed and paid for through the FEMA process. So there's a couple different ways of trying to address the issue, because I think the challenging part is that upfront capital expense, and I was under the impression that the generator that they were looking at was more in the $100,000 dollar range, but
Well, that was to run the whole building.
got it.
I'm just talking about something that would be 30 to 35,000 so that people would have, we could rig it so that they would have a small amount of space in there for cooling. There would be heat if we needed it, but we won't because it's usually the summertime. And lights. Because the big thing they said when I kept looking at these little kids sleeping on the pavement in the middle of the night, I thought, well, shit, why aren't they inside?
Yeah.
And they said that we can't take them inside legally because there's no lights.
Right. I mean, I do think it would be wise if they were able to wire it. I mean, for instance, during that Kincaid fire event, we did bring a generator over, but it wasn't set up to be, to be able to plug and play, so to speak. So it just all it really did is power some outdoor lights and a hand washing station.
Yeah, I saw that. So where do we own generators? How many generators does the city own?
Well, we only own, now we own two, and we have another one that we are going to be purchasing that the council approved for. So we have a dedicated one for our water pump that actually serves Zone 1. So all of your neighborhood, Gus, we had that generator set up at the Kincaid fire there. We rented that one, but we now have purchased a new one, and we may have gotten it in, but if not, it's been ordered and we're waiting to receive it.
Well, how do you get generators at the time? Say something hits that's terrible, and we're suddenly faced with 300 or 400 people standing there. How do you get that generator as opposed to someone else getting it?
Well, yeah, I mean that last time we were able to obtain it through the Emergency Operations Center. We said we have a need for it. They found one. Actually, the one that we ended up renting was originally rented by Redwood Credit Union. They lended it to us, and we just reimbursed them for their direct expense for renting it. But yeah, you either have to have contracts in place in advance, or it's kind of on demand, first come, first serve.
Yeah, because I know there were a lot of people looking for generators and they were gone. You couldn't even buy one.
Yeah.
So it's perplexing to me, but I like that idea about having just a portion of it ready to plug and play. It's just getting that generator to run it.
Yeah.
And, I just don't know. So you guys feel like there's no money for a generator. I'm getting that feeling that if I want to help find a generator, I got to go do a fundraiser.
We can certainly look at the budget. I mean, and we can put an item on the agenda so that we can bring back our research. It's just the capital expense is pretty high, and we're also facing the need really to look at our own generators. I mean, even our generator at the water treatment plant needs a major overhaul. And I was just talking to Darren last week that because the parts, unfortunately, they come from Japan, and there's a long lead time.
Oh yeah.
For us to once we order them, to get them back and then get somebody to install, to get another generator, so we have the primary and then we have a backup, and that's kind of what we need to. We really need to continue to invest in our system, so we have everything we need for to us to continue to provide and to have continuity of operation. So we have water, wastewater.
No, of course, that's critical. That's first. I get that. I get that.
And so we've made pretty good progress in getting those done. We have more to do, and then hopefully then, because I think the senior center again critical, because gosh, during a hot hot spell, if power goes out, it could be a cooling center. It's also got the commercial kitchen, so it's an ideal place to prepare meals. And then I think the other one is the county veterans hall. We want to have solar for the pool, but that could be another part of our kind of our resiliency strategy. Maybe for folks that are more medically sensitive, that might be an ideal place for them. But again, that's through the county, so we kind of need to get the county on board. But I think everybody agrees with you, Mary Ann. It's just how do we fund it? How do we do it? And in the context of all the priorities that we have.
Yeah, well, I'm of the opinion, David, I like your idea about talking to Gore about this. You're absolutely right. When the Citrus Fair opens as a shelter, we get folks from all over the Northern County. And if we want to keep that thing going, we do need the generators. So, Mary Ann, I think that's our first line. I know you've been trying to reach out to Gore, and I think he's been a little tied up, but that's probably the way we want to go. And I don't know if Jim's already done that or not.
No, I don't know either. I'm assuming he does. He has a pretty good relationship, I think, with Gore.
Okay.
And I will reach out to Jim Wood, and I will also reach out to Mike McGuire and see if there's any pockets we can reach into or something.
Sounds
David,
good.
David, just real quick, I liked your idea. So if they wired it, and then we had a contract that would ensure that we could get the generator pretty quickly, to me that makes more sense, because those things, if they sit around all year, they got to be turned on, and maintenance has to occur. I don't know if it's possible to do what you said. That way you'd have some assurity there'd be one waiting for you, and if you were pre-wired, then you wouldn't be your problem. 99.9% of the time you don't need it, and then you could bring it in. I don't know. That seems like a pretty good approach if it's possible.
No, I actually like that idea a lot. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think I was driving down Sandholm. When you get behind Bear Republic, there's like 4 generators sitting there, a couple of them really big ones. I don't even know whose land that is for sure, but it's on the right-hand side. And I think about, my God, those must have cost a fortune. Why are they sitting out here in the open air?
Yeah. And the reality too, one of our strategies could be that the city buys a mobile generator and we have available, and so that if there is an emergency and if they're wired, we can go hook it up. But in the meantime, we can use it for other projects, other activities.
No, I like that idea. I never thought that I thought it should be portable, yes. Some of them are just on little trailers. The bigger ones they're very mobile.
Right.
And I do like that idea, and have them stand the cost of the wiring and stuff, and we would just say, okay, it's available. Because I doubt we would need to do more than one building at any time. So I like that. Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've talked this pretty much. I think everybody has some work to do, and the main thing is for us not step on the toes of the Citrus Fair and try and do something, And I know, Mary Ann, you're talking with them, and we need to continue doing that. Kevin, quick question before I open it to the public. I see a hand raised. Do you know why they stopped doing the safe routes to school? They haven't worked on that for a while now. Am I missing something?
I have an update on that, Mayor.
Uh-huh.
So we, the work, obviously is very detailed survey work, and the engineering designer for the city was GHD. The contractor Team Gelati, prior to actually constructing some of the work, went out and did survey work, and their survey work conflicted with our survey work. And so they've filed a petition that's similar to a change order. And we think we're right, but they think they're right. And we're trying to resolve that because what it'll end up being is an additional cost if we're wrong. And if they're wrong, then it's on them. And it's being worked through right now between the city, our consultant GHD, and Team Gelati. And this was what they referred to the gutter conform. So it's where the gutter meets the asphalt. And it's critical we get the height right, because if you don't, then the drainage from the street doesn't flow into the gutter. So that's kind of in a nutshell why the project was put on hold, to address this survey question. But Mark and Eric have the details. That's the high level overview that they've shared with me.
Okay. Sorry I asked, Dave. Okay. It's always something, you know? Never have an easy project.
Right.
I see Mr. Cox has his hand open if we're ready to take some comment. Bob?
Well, it seems like Bob always has a comment on something. This is just a comment, and thank you for bringing up the Safe Routes to School project. My first term as mayor was 2012, in the height of the drought. My pet project that year was Safe Routes to School, because of all of the citizens that walk to work from the north end of town down to Ferber Plaza, and there are no way they're traveling in the street when they're going there. So I pushed that for a long, long time. It's just so nice to see that work being started. Anyway, what's holding it up will be resolved here soon, but it's nice to see that happening. That's, a complete staff and 2 city managers ago. So I'm glad it didn't get lost in the shuffle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Irene, anyone else?
No one else, Chair.
Okay. Councilmember Brigham, before we move on to the next item, anything else?
Nope.
Staff? Okay, thank you, Kevin. We'll be looking for updates as we move from meeting to meeting. Next item, item number 5E, is an update on 6 Acres Water Company and South Cloverdale Water Company.
Mayor, we've been working on this pre-annexation agreement for a number of years, and we've kind of been going back and forth between the city and the 6 Acres Water Company. Where it stands right now is they are kind of disputing what we've put in the agreement, and we have offered to have a meeting with anyone who wants to attend on their team and our team with David and myself and Mark and Jose, to work through what we think are the remaining items in the pre-annexation agreement. Really a big sticking point is that bridge and its adequacy to carry commercial, like the city vehicles that would need to go to on the other side to maintain water pipes and things like that. But, in our opinion, we thought we were pretty close. I mean, I was kind of surprised by their reaction once we sent back our latest iteration. In my opinion, the ball is in their court. We have offered to have this meeting. There is the idea that of this forced consolidation, where the state gets kind of fed up with no progress and kind of merges the 6 Acres area into the city. We're trying to analyze that. We do have a Myers-Nave working on that, so we understand exactly what that means for the city. One of the thoughts is maybe that's a better way for us to go, so that we don't have to do these agreements and the state kind of bears the brunt of merging us, but we don't know all the implications of that. So we're going to be reporting back on that. This has been a long process. and there's some expectations on their side, in my opinion, that are difficult for the city to achieve. Things that really get into areas that aren't really related to providing water, particularly zoning and non-conforming uses and other things like that. I hope they come back, because I do honestly think that we are close. So, you know, we've spent a considerable amount of staff time between David and Mark and myself, and that now more recently Jose and others at Myers Nave. So it would seem that we could make this happen. So I hope that they reconsider and take us up on our offer. Otherwise, we will report back on what a forced consolidation actually looks like. You know, if that's really something that the state will do, if there's another way to provide them water. You know, the idea that we could just do a master meter and provide them water and keep them not within the city limits has some merit, although from a planning perspective, they are within our sphere of influence. So really the county, you know, the LAFCO who approves these outside service agreements will say, well, you know, they're in your sphere of influence. They really should be considered to be brought into the city. We know that the infrastructure out there is, you know, not in great shape, and I think that we've kind of come to grips with that. And you know, I don't think that the council's expectation would be that everything would be brought up to city standards right away, or, you know, anytime soon. It's a lot of money to do that, but we have been trying to get certain things in this agreement and get agreement on some of those, and that's kind of the end of the report. I know that Gus, you've been taking an interest in this and making some calls on behalf of the city to the state water person. Mary Ann, I think I gave you an update not that long ago. So again, it's in our opinion, it's in their court, and you know, my last interactions with their kind of resident representative have not been you know, positive. So I don't know if they're just giving up and throwing their hands up or what, but we're still willing to work, and we feel like we could make this work.
Who's been making calls to the state?
Well, I think you called one of the guys who sent the letter over.
Yeah.
Kind of explaining to him, and I appreciate you doing that.
I did. You're absolutely right. I did, and he is, and I flip to you and David his emails that I get. He'd kind of like to know where we are in the process. What I think I'd like to see us do, if at all possible, if you just let me run for a minute, Mary Ann, is to call for a meeting and give them a drop dead date by the end of June, whatever it may be, you know, and if you don't come to the table, then we're just going to turn it back to the state. I mean, for them to come to us and say that they want to change their land use zoning, they want to have no code enforcements on their property. I mean, that's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with their water, as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, from a city standpoint, my goal is to spend absolutely $0 on this project. I know that's not going to happen, but that's my starting point. You know, we didn't create the problem, but we're expected to fix it. The county is sitting there with absolutely no skin in the game at this point. And the state is doing absolutely nothing. And they're the ones that dropped the ball to begin with. So I rant a little bit, but it's so frustrating. And what do you think the possibility is of giving them a drop dead, come meet with us, or we just turn it back to the state? I mean, we could fool with this thing forever.
No, I think it's a good possibility. I thought I sent to them what I thought was a pretty, you know, much of an olive branch email, and really trying to be encouraging to say, I know it's been a long road, but we're not giving up, and you know, we're willing to, you know, I didn't say this, but it would be an expensive meeting for the city. We would have, you know, 2 attorneys and David and Mark and I, and so, you know, we're willing to do that. And I haven't heard back, but I'm absolutely on board with sending a follow-up email to say, look, we're still willing to do this. This is your path forward. Please let us know by this date. Otherwise, whatever we'll say. But
Yeah.
if that's the direction, I certainly can do that.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, what are we going to do? We have to bring this to some type of fruition. And at this point, Sacramento's thinking that we're dropping the ball. They're expecting the city, the bigger agency, of course, to take charge of it and make it happen. And we've got somebody on the other end that's not playing ball with us. So, you're going to have to talk it over with David and I'm sure Jose on how do we craft that letter, but let's just bring it to a conclusion as far as I'm concerned. David, you look like you want to say something.
No, I don't really have much to say. I think it's a good idea that we try, at least one more time to have them, meet. I think in terms of the concept, I think we're, for the most part, in agreement. It was really over a few minor things. And it was quite surprising that the representative kind of unleashed this torrent of emails that just seemed to reflect negatively on the city. And that was kind of the challenging part. But I think we were there, and ultimately, the other option would be, have that meeting and bring it to council and just outline all the terms. But we want to set the council up for success, obviously, that in a way that is a win for the city and a win for them, and not be in a position that the council and staff get bashed further, because I think you said it, Gus, this isn't a problem that the city created. It's a problem that the city's trying to address and resolve, and we have committed tremendous resources to this. And while it's not agendized specifically, but the other aspect to this is that the South Cloverdale Mutual Water Company is undergoing the same kind of process where they're going to have an engineering firm. It doesn't look like it's going to be GHD, but another firm to do a similar engineering study. So it's value. In a way that kind of points to the value of the state taking the lead, because they hire the engineer, they do all of the administrative work in terms of the contracting and the billing, and it doesn't get us in the middle of having to pay them, seek reimbursement, put all that documentation together. We certainly can, as you recommended, Mayor, it's a good idea. We can try to reconvene and see if we can't come to some agreement. I think it would be important, Gus, that one or two council members attend too, to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to be at that meeting. Is it possible that we could bring this to fruition by the end of the month?
It'd just be dependent on whether they're available to meet. What we probably want to do is set up a virtual meeting like this, just to find a time that works and
okay,
share where we're at. Agreement.
They have to be willing, though, and I have offered this, and it was, what was that, David? Probably a month ago. I haven't heard a word from them. So, but I'll try again, and I'll work with David and Jose on exactly what to say in that invite, and we'll see where it goes.
Now, Kevin, when you send out an invite, who are you sending that to?
Well, it wasn't an invite necessarily. It was really just an email to say, look, we're willing to sit down with you and go through point by point our disagreement, all our disagreements in this arrangement, and they did not respond.
Who's they?
Well, it's who is it? It's Sage and their attorney Camille I forget her last name.
Canoe.
Panu. Who else is out there, David?
The Lyles?
I don't think is it Lori Lyle?
Yeah.
Well,
Been on the
okay,
email.
well, I think, let's make sure that the Lyles are on that email.
Yeah, I think
And
they were. There's a big list of names that were on there, and that was the
Okay.
kind of, yeah.
All right. Maybe just another follow-up. We haven't received a response from you on this. Do you want to meet or not?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if you want, I'll pick up the phone and call Lyle. I'll call Gene.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I don't know where we're going with this.
I don't either. There's not really.
I'm just afraid that LAFCO and everybody's going to say, okay, take it all now, you know, take the water districts, take Church Lane, and we don't want to do that.
Mayor,
Mary Ann?
it might be helpful just because you fostered that relationship with the Lyle family. If you reached out and said, hey, I'm the mayor, I'd really like to see if we can't, give this a go, and how about if we set up a meeting sometime before the end of the month?
I'll call Gene.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call Gene. Mary Ann?
No, it's just startling for me to hear that they don't want any kind of, they want zoning changes, but they also don't want any kind of, our ability to check buildings or anything. That surprises me. I didn't realize that.
Am I right on that, David and Kevin, that they didn't want us to do any code enforcement of any type on the properties?
It had to do with animals and non-conforming things, and it's really them threading the needle, trying to keep everyone on board out there who don't really necessarily want to be in the city. They're afraid that we're going to come in and change their lifestyle. And so there's just some odd, and these aren't my words. These are the Myers-Nave, land use attorney, just some real odd things in there that wouldn't normally be in this type of agreement that, obviously we're done to keep the folks living out there, in agreement with this to say, okay, let's pursue getting into the city, and don't worry, we won't come and take your goats away and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. Irene, anybody in the public?
No hands are raised, Chair.
Okay. Kevin, are we done with that update?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to transit, Route 68, something a little easier. And just a reminder, it's getting to be 5:30. I'm at 49% battery life. So
I'll be
I
fast.
just wanted to share that.
This is a standing item. A previous member of this committee put together a lot of comments for the local Cloverdale bus route. We've submitted those to Brian Albee. He's considering some of them, but he said nothing's going to happen till the fall. So I think he'll probably end up doing a few of those. There were some good ideas there. There were some that were more of a stretch, I think, but were good ideas. Brian hasn't committed to any, but he said in the fall, he will reconsider the list of requested changes. And some of them were as simple as, ADA compliance and other small things. And there was some good ideas. So this has been a standing item from the previous members of this committee. I mean, we can keep it on here if you want, or I can just report back when we hear from Brian Albee that he's willing to do some of these changes. It's up to you.
Well, I'm big for leaving it on the agenda, and just a little update like you did is fine. I'm just afraid once we take it off the agenda, it kind of falls through the crack, and all of a sudden, 6 months from now, it's, oh yeah, what about that thing? So,
yeah.
Mary Ann, your thoughts?
That's fine.
Okay. Let's move on. And Irene, just interrupt me if somebody has their hand raised for
Of course.
comment. Okay. Let's talk about dog park location. Anything new there?
I don't. I reached out to Elsa probably a month ago, and just because she had requested property owners of locations that she liked throughout town, and I provided her the information we had. And I just kind of said, what's going on? And she didn't really have an update. She's kind of our advocate out there. I don't know how active she is right now. She was very active for a while. But in terms of staff, the only thing that we really have done is provided Elsa with property owner information. So
Okay.
I don't know if she's sheltering in place or what's going on, but she did want to reach out to the usual spots that, Gus, we've talked about for a long time, behind the car wash and the Caltrans and all of those sites.
Okay. Mary Ann, anything?
Not on the dog park.
Okay, let's have an update on community development planning law.
The only real thing happening here is we are bringing Baumgartner to a planning commission meeting July 23rd, which is next Tuesday. We have conditions of approval. We've scrutinized it. The CEQA has been completed and we've addressed the comments. It's a big project. We'll probably do 2 planning commissions. I don't know how that's going to work, but that's going to be ultimately going to the council. There's a lot of affordable units in there. It's a dense project. It's denser than what we typically see in town. It certainly is sort of the new rage in planning is to get more houses on less land. I've been conversing with the applicant about his need to provide recreation and open space. This topic did come up last night at the school committee as well. There's some topics to discuss. There's about 6.8 acres of open space on the hill that's will be remaining open. He has not committed to making that public. He hasn't committed to not making it public. His stance really is he doesn't mind if we want to put trails on it and make something of it, but he doesn't want anything. He doesn't want to spend any money on that or be responsible for the long-term maintenance. And so what I wrote a condition in the conditions of approval that the applicant will continue to work with the city to seek ways to make that public open space. I don't know. He's trying to really put it on us to find a private, nonprofit or someone like that who might be interested in making some trails up there. Other than that, there's a couple community buildings and there's a couple of tot lots in the high density portion. The reason I'm saying this is because I think that's going to be one of the main topics of discussion is sort of the impact of that many homes on our recreation system. At the school board meeting last night, at the school subcommittee, I should say, they are still interested in having sort of a partnership on their property there, maybe for some sports fields. That was discussed, never discussed with us, but that rumor was around there. I don't know when he met with individual council members, if he showed a plan for that. We did happen to see a plan that was never formally submitted as part of the application. So I've been telling you all along.
Who did he show that plan to?
I don't know. The school district, David, I mean,
I saw it.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't any big deal. It was just, and remember when they wanted all of us to meet with them privately? And I met with them and he wouldn't let me keep a copy, but he had some drawings and quite honestly, it wasn't very elegant. Let's put it that way. It was just because my big bitch there at that meeting was that for the amount of housing he was getting on that property, there is no place for the kids to play. There's a couple tot lots and I pushed the same thing Kevin's talking about. I said, well, it's your responsibility to give outside areas. And so then they start talking about the possibility of maybe eliminating some of the bigger houses below the hill, at the bottom of the hill, and putting another playground there. But I don't think we can count on them doing anything on the field with the school district because who knows whether that's ever going to even happen.
Yeah. Well, you know how I feel about density. I think density is great, but you need that balance. you can't squeeze 100 people in on an acre. I mean, my goodness. We got those homes up behind Goodwill that aren't selling. I mean, density is nice, but it's got to be the right amount of density. And for us to create a bottleneck of traffic and put a strain on everything else, now I'm ranting too much, but anyhow, I'll wait for the planning commission. What time is that next week on the 23rd? 6 o'clock? You know?
6:30.
6:30. And it's going to be a Zoom, or is it going to be at the?
It's our first one since COVID, so I was gonna probably do what David does and go up, and then I think Mike, the chair, Mike Shanahan, wants to also be in the building.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think we're gonna try to do it the way the council does it.
Okay. I'll be at the building too, I think, for this one.
And Mayor and council member, one of the other developments, we had a joint city school subcommittee meeting yesterday, and the school board members of the subcommittee inquired about the project when Kevin provided an update on development, and they specifically referenced the recreational amenities that they had discussed directly with the school district board members, as a way to kind of garner their support for the project. And I shared with them that they had made no commitments to the city to provide any of those recreational amenities, and their response was, well, they better, because that's how they got our support. And my response was, we need correspondence from the school board indicating their request and desire to allow them to build recreational improvements on the school property to meet the recreational needs of the project. And maybe the concept would be that the developer is responsible for builds them on school property. School could then use them as amenities for the school, whether it's a baseball field, a soccer field, or bowl. When school's in, and then they're available to the community after when school's out through a joint use agreement. And we could work out an agreement for that to happen, and maybe even consider how park fees could be dedicated to help offset some of the costs. So that was kind of the thought process. But I said it was critical that they get us, they send us communication indicating their willingness and also their request that they build those or provide those improvements on school property. Because absent that, I'm not sure it would be difficult to put the council in the middle of that to say, well, you should go build these improvements on school property. I mean, you're certainly entitled to do that, but it just makes it more challenging if you don't have the school board.
No, I had no intention of opening my mouth at that meeting, and I'm not going to require them to build any recreational facilities, playgrounds, or anything on somebody else's land. But I do expect to see some type of a playground for the kids that live in that neighborhood there. What are they going to do? Come all the way up here to Vintage Meadows, I guess is Ferber, I guess, would be the closest playground that they would go to, but they need to have something on site. So, Mary Ann, anything?
No, you know how I feel about it.
Okay. Any members of the public? No? Okay.
Yeah,
Last
Kevin.
item, follow-up information on reach codes. Not much to say there, huh, Kevin?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I think, yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, okay. And Rob keeps sending those lengthy emails. We ought to hire him. I mean, he surely does go into detail.
Yes,
Maybe
he
it can be an
does.
intern. They have an
Yeah.
intern.
There you go. Mary Ann, anything on that reach codes?
No, in an era when we're trying to bring affordable housing to the forefront, adding a pretty sizable block of money to every building we're going to build doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to move through these items. Let me know if you'd like me to stop. Informational only memos. Future
None.
agenda items. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sorry. There's no informational.
Okay,
memo.
future agenda items.
Well, future agenda items, it may land here or it may land another subcommittee, but just wanted to give the members of the subcommittee an update that staff met on Monday to discuss bringing forward a stage 1 water emergency. This is, as you heard, the city engineer announced that at the end of the meeting on or was it June 10th council meeting. Was kind of came as a surprise to me because we hadn't reviewed and discussed that. But looking at it very carefully, we will likely plan to bring something forward for council to take a look at. It does have implications for planning and development. Specifically, it could move towards prohibiting new connections, which is obviously is something we want to look at very carefully because of our balanced need for development. But obviously, water is critical, and kind of the trigger that why this may be something that the council should consider is because of the water agencies, the temporary urgency petition to reduce flows in the Russian and the impacts it can have on our ability to pump. And so we need more data to understand what that flow looks like by our wells. But if it truly goes down to 50 cubic feet per second, it reduces the amount of water we can produce, which if we have a significant period of demand, it can impact our supply. So it's a balancing act, and we want to make sure council's apprised and that we look at this carefully in light of the water agency's actions to reduce flows.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I would just want to this committee know that this may be a future agenda item either here or at council or both.
Well, let me drag out my soapbox for a minute. That water agency is impeding our water rights that go back to the mid 1800s. We have water rights to take as much water out of that river as we need to support our community. We looked into that with Myers Nave about 8 years ago, and we got the blessing. And now the water agency is impeding our ability to do that. They're actually taking our water rights away from us. And, I still think there's some legal action we could take so that they can't do that. But, okay, I'm putting my soapbox away. Mary Ann, anything?
Nope. Well, I have one question, just for clarity, for David. Say next week, we're facing some type of a evacuation, and those guys have their shit together over there and they're doing their stuff. How do they exactly access that $5,000 in increments of what, and who do they contact? How will it happen? Will they get gift cards or what?
So let's just suggest July 1, just because that's our new budget. They would contact me and say they have a need, and we would, I'd ask them to provide documentation that needs either an email request, a letter, and identify what they want to use it for, and then I'd cut the check. And Mary, just so you know, during the Kincaid fire, I had that same conversation with Katie. I said, if you have immediate needs for food or supplies, let me know, and we'll, I can, we can, through that mechanism, you submit the request, and and I would have cut a check. The only thing I was expressing just concern about was just handing out cash without some kind of backup.
No, I get it. I'm just wondering, when I see Jimmy, I was just wanting to be able to be clear on
Yeah.
what I don't want to say something that isn't correct.
Right. We put 6,500 in the budget, and what I thought we could do is enter into a funding agreement, say for $5,000, and have it be kind of a standing agreement that's just in place, and it says for emergency response associated with care and shelter, and that would include potential food supplies, water, financial assistance, and I think the intent would be then we give it to them and they figure out how to help folks. So we're not trying to be the ones responsible for handing out gift cards if that's what's needed, or going out and buying food. It's kind of, they have their network of volunteers, and we're just really the funding conduit.
Gotcha. Okay, so you think that can be in place this summer?
I think it could. I think, it's within my authority. We put together, funding, real simple funding agreements already that Jose's blessed. So just all I'd want from them is just like a little one-page, scope of work, so to speak. Just an overview of what the service would be that they'd provide and their request, and we'll put the agreement together.
Did anyone hear the toilet flush? Because that's the cleaning lady cleaning. I'm in the conference room.
Sure, Gus. Sure. Yep.
And the cleaning lady is cleaning the bathroom. I could get her in here if you want.
No, I know where that
Nobody
picture
heard it.
hangs. I know where
Okay.
that picture hangs.
I'm the one preaching Zoom etiquette, and so. Okay, pending items. Anything?
None.
No,
Good of the order.
no good of the order.
Rubber
Okay.
mulch is done.
Yeah, rubber mulch is done.
Congratulations.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
It was Hector. Hector did the hard work.
He did, and Vice Mayor Turner can see how quickly the city wheels work. That was pretty fast. So
It would have been faster had COVID not come along.
yeah. Well, it's done. Irene, if there's nobody in the waiting room that wants to say anything, and if we've done everything we're supposed to, I'd like to adjourn the meeting to August the 18th at 4 p.m. Is that okay? Okay, then meeting adjourned. David, can you give me a call sometime tomorrow?
Yeah, I have